Hi and welcome to Cannes Lions 2015. We've just been delivered a fantastic in-depth summary of the global advertising market by Steve King, the Worldwide Chief Executive Officer of ZenithOptimedia. One of the kind of key themes that you painted was of a global ad industry that, swan-like perhaps, seems to be sort of gentle growth on top, but frantic sort of pace of change beneath the surface. Is that something that's going to kind of change the way the industry is over the years?
Yeah, I think that's a very good analogy. I think I like that. I should have used that. Yeah, I think that's right. You know, because you look at the headline number, you know, the figure's growing at about globally at about 4%, just over 4% globally. We've got a market that's about 531 billion. So as you say, that looks quite serene or even benign. But what's happening is, you know, there's disruption at every level. Geographically, we're obviously seeing a lot more growth now that's coming out of the Eastern markets and about LATAM. The platforms which are coming, you know, if you take the total growth, 70% is coming from mobile, so you can't avoid that mobile platform. And the way that consumers are now able to receive messages is changing so dynamically. And for us, the real thing that's happening and disrupting and transforming our business is technology. Yep. Transforming the way that brands are sort of able to reach their consumers, but you know, and for us, it's transforming the way that we run our operations. You know, we used to be just a media agency and execution company, and we are now expected, not surprisingly, to have the same knowledge of what's happening in terms of content, analytics, technology, data than we would have had about our media partners. So our business is changing, transforming so rapidly, and you know, so I think, you know, beneath the surface, you know, that I've never known a time of such sort of energetic change that's happening right now.
And you obviously, inevitably, one of the big changes is the growth in online advertising and the tipping point that perhaps we're reaching in terms of that becoming the absolute majority of global advertising spend, and actually that consolidation of power amongst a small number of digital media, global digital media companies. Is that making life harder or easier for clients and advertisers?
Well, you know, it's interesting. You know, in a way, we've got sort of 5 global players, you know, from including Google and Facebook, you know, but those 5 represent about 70% of all of the investment spent in the internet, a staggering figure. You know, but of course, you know, those companies have also got the same pressures on them to continue growing, and that's hard to do. You know, once, you know, look at the ubiquitous now of Google and Facebook. So they're looking for new ways to develop and grow their marketplace, and one of the things obviously they're doing is looking at their own technology capabilities and looking to partner with companies like us. And you know, I talked, as you heard, about this technology stack, and so they're each trying to promote their own technology solutions so that we can actually find a way of connecting the various different touch points at which the consumer interacts now with a brand to build up a much deeper understanding of how a brand is interacting with a consumer. So that's really sort of transforming the way that these digital partners, you know, so rather than being sort of abusing their power, they're all in an absolutely competitive marketplace.
Yeah. There were a number of interesting graphics, and one you showed was the rise of the mobile-only consumer and somebody that accesses the internet exclusively via that device, or primarily, and very much Africa, Asia seems to be expanding. That's a new challenge for advertisers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a new challenge for advertisers, but it's also a new challenge for society and brands. It's much bigger than advertising. You know, advertising is sort of at the periphery of this. What it's doing is really elevating the economic prospects of and development of a lot of these markets. You know, the way it's going to introduce banking, pay by phone, e-commerce, and particularly in the area of education and health. You know, this ability, you know, to communicate through phones, you know, which are now available at $50 per unit, and it's sort of avoided that whole, you know, time lag that we thought would happen. Well, people actually bought in expertise in PC and internet-based communications. It's really sort of elevating the economic prospects of those markets. That sort of connectivity that we've seen in the West is having a much more fundamental effect. Sure, it's affecting the way we can communicate with those people, those consumers, but it's a much more fundamental change that's happening in society as a whole.
Yeah, and finally, you concluded with a look at the shifting global power base, if you like. And as you said, it's no surprise to know that Asia is increasingly important, but also you touched on certain markets in LATAM, Southeast Asia. And how is that global changing picture affecting, you know, advertisers, agencies, businesses in this industry?
I think what we've seen is that it's interesting because we're really torn because the growth. So if you look at the markets like you've just said, you know, some of the fast-growing markets in Asia, those in Latin America, are growing at about twice the sort of the market average of about 4%. So we obviously have to have strong representations in those markets. On the other hand, the largest market in the world, which still represents 40% of global ad spend, is the US, but 73% of all global ad dollars that are collected are actually derived by US-based companies. And of course, all of that development, that technology development, that content development, that data development, the analytic development is largely based on the west coast of the US. So actually we have this conundrum, you know, do we sort of increasingly focus our capabilities, you know, towards those faster growing markets, or do we need to focus it towards where that technology center is such a sort of hotbed of ideas and development, because we need to be close to those digital distributors and content developers. So we're actually sort of torn, so that's one of the challenges, managing a global services company.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate it, and look forward to speaking 12 months' time to see how the market's updated.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.